everything is okay. So let's say go live. So good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. So I'm just going to start with my presentation, and I hope you are able to see my screen, right? Is that correct? Aleksandra, do you see my screen?
I don't see your screen yet.
Okay, you don't see. Okay, let me share my screen, and I now believe that you see my screen, right?
Yeah.
No. Yes, that's okay. So once again, in today's meetup, I'm starting saying, let's learn. So when you share your experience, your knowledge, sharing is caring, and your knowledge is becoming, is increasing. So it's very good from this point of view. And I'm calling today's session like, let's learn. I hope I strongly believe that we will be able to learn a lot of things from Aleksandra. And this is the 7th meetup in 2023, organized by Baku Power BI, Excel, and Innovative Educators Meetup Group. In today's meetup, Aleksandra will explain why testing reports with users is beneficial and crucial. This is Aleksandra Slowik, and I hope in next minutes Aleksandra will introduce herself and we will know her better. And our meetup is live streaming on YouTube. This is my YouTube channel where you can find all the previous recorded sessions organized by my meetup group. And after this meetup, I will send you an email where you will find the necessary links and the necessary information about this meetup. And also at the end of this meetup, we'll have Q&A session for 15 minutes. And during the session, you can also ask a question, write a question, and of course, all this question will be delivered to Aleksandra. So Baku Power and Excel and Innovative Education Meetup Group is inviting the next speakers. So it's going to be happening in September, October, and November. So we'll have Elena Moore from Microsoft USA, Meltem Balleker from Recep Technology from Turkey, and also Yana Berkovic from Microsoft from Canada. These are our speakers. For Azerbaijani members, community members, what I can tell you is that I have translated 2 books from English into Azerbaijani language. The first one is Financial Modeling in Excel for Dummies. The author of this book is Daniela Stein-Ferros from Australia, who is financial modeler. And then the second one is Master Your Data, Power Query in Excel and Power BI. The authors are Miguel Escobar, and Ken Pals from Canada and Panama. So these books are going to be available as of 15th of September. So you will have an opportunity to buy this book. And this is all from my side. And now I don't want to lose more time, and I would like to stop sharing and I would like to deliver my stage to Aleksandra. So Aleksandra, the stage is yours. You can share and start. Thank you. Yeah. Aleksandra, can you unmute yourself, please?
Okay, thank you. So once again, hello everyone. Just a few words about me. Currently, I am a Power BI developer in a consulting company. Previously, I worked as a data analyst in the customer experience and user experience area, where I was inspired by the topic I will be presenting today. And today, as Ilgar mentioned, I will talk about the UX research method, which is usability testing, which in my opinion is slightly underrated area of UX, which is not yet widely discussed in the context of dashboard development, which in a nutshell is based on interviewing and observing the user in order to catch the possible pain points in the dashboard and improve the user experience. First, I will tell you about what usability testing is in general, and when and why is it worth to conduct it. Then we will go through step by step how to conduct such a test by the book. And I will also show you on the example of my dashboard how to work out a test plan. And finally, I will tell you how to conduct such a test in real life, because we usually don't have the time or opportunity to conduct a full usability test. So at first, I would like to bring up the common understanding of UX or UI in the context of dashboard development. So usually UI, UX, UI topics focus around visual aspects of designs, such as correct layout, icons, correct or fancy charts, interaction design, maybe, color theory, UI tools like Figma, and accessibility is quite a popular topic lately. And of course, these are also very interesting and very useful topics. But today I'm going to introduce you to a slightly different part of UX, which is usability testing, and which we can say aim to check if we have correctly applied the concepts marked in blue. So typically, when we do some testing of our dashboards, we usually focus on the areas like performance, data accuracy, data validity, sometimes availability. But today, our topic will cover testing such areas as learnability, which is how easy it is for users to accomplish basic tasks for the first time they interact with a dashboard. Errors, but in terms of how many errors does the user make and can he recover. Memorability, so when the user return to our dashboard after a while of not using it, how easily can they remember how to work with it. And efficiency, which is how fast can they perform tasks or do some analysis. And satisfaction, which goes without saying, so how pleasant it is to use the report. And all these components add up to usability, which is what we want to look at via usability testing. But why is it so important, especially when we have correct data, we have followed all the UI rules, we spend a lot of time on the design, and so on and so on. So we may think that everything is easy and intuitive, but users, especially those who don't often work with data, can experience issues that we didn't expect. So we often deliver the report, request approval, and consider our work done. But in the end, we don't really know if our dashboard is truly effective and user-friendly, because unfortunately, there is no 100% universal solution, and we should customize each report to our audience. And this is why it's so important to test more than just performance or data validity, because we don't get much out of very correct report that users cannot or simply don't like to use. So when it becomes particularly significant, it's worth to consider usability testing, especially when we implement multiple filters, buttons, or interactions, when we recreate or modify already existing report and users are used to the old design and we simply turn the world upside down, when we consciously break UI rules, which sometimes happens because we want to make space for an extra chart or because of the requirements, when we know that users don't work with data on a daily basis, as I mentioned before, when we know that someone with a disability, like for example with color blindness, will be a user, when that audience is broad or diverse in expertise, background, or roles, or a very common case in the Power BI or Tableau developer work, when we implement a new tool for the first time in the company or team. So why this usability testing is so awesome? Here I would like to show you a graph, and On the x-axis, we see the number of users tested, and on the y-axis, % of usability problems found. And as you can see, as few as 5 users already allow us to reveal almost 85% of problems. And this is, let's say, the magic number that we want to aim for, because it gives us the best results compared to the effort. But 3 users is also quite good, because it's 67% problems found. And please note that the biggest difference is between no testing and 1% tested, because it's 31% of problems found. So there is no need for large scale studies, like for example in the quantitative studies. 5 user reveals almost 85% of the issues, and this is the number that we want to aim for. But only if we test no one, we won't solve any problem. And that's why feedback from every single person is precious. So now I would like to give you the overview of the process of conducting usability testing by the book. I will discuss each step in a bit more detail later. So first we set the goals, and then we find the right users, so people who will be our testers. Then we create a plan for testing, conduct a test, analyze results of the testing, and improve your report if needed. And in ideal world, we should repeat this process, but we don't live in the perfect world. So let's move on to setting the goals. So in general, we can have 2 different objectives: to study the overall experience of a dashboard, so the impression of a dashboard as a whole, including visual design, intuitiveness, and general usability, to determine if the dashboard provides positive user experience, meets the user needs and expectation, or we can evaluate a single or several feature or function to check whether they are user-friendly. So our goal might be, for example, to test the effectiveness and understandability of unconventional chart, ease of navigation within the dashboard. So is the navigation path logical and intuitive? Is it visible? Ease of applying filters and utilizing interactions, readability of text elements like titles or labels, performance and functionality on different devices, effectiveness of instructions or helping buttons, because sometimes we know that something for the user may be unclear, and we put such helping buttons, but it's worth to check whether they really help or just clutter the report. Or, for example, understanding and interpretation of the data presented. So once we have set our goals, we move on to finding the right users, who will be our testers. To do so, first clearly define your target audience, so basically who will use it. And consider factors like roles, expertise, and experience with tools that you deploy. Then we create user personas representing different user profiles. So we can have, for example, young analysts or experienced manager. Later, you should use these personas as a reference to select participants who match each category. Then we determine sample size. Usually 5 would be ideal, as I mentioned before, but I will remind you that as few as 3 people already allow us to find almost 70% of the problems. Then we select testers according to your user personas, but ensure diversity in the participant pool to get a broader perspective. Aim for a mix of skill levels, environments, and roles, if applicable. So if we have a dashboard that will be used by, for example, 10 managers and 10 analysts, don't test it only among analysts. test, for example, 2 managers and 2 analysts. And the last and probably the hardest step is to recruit, so to convince people to participate in testing. Here, it may be useful to describe the benefits of testing, which I covered earlier, but in practice, you need to be sneaky and approach each person individually. So once we have established our goals and selected participants, we create a test plan. This plan is worth to customize for yourself, because the size and the detail of the plan will depend on how many people you test, what are your goals, because, for example, if you're testing the overall experience, this plan might be more detailed. But generally, this plan should contain at least goals, logistic matters like dates, locations, participants that we selected before, the most important thing, which are tasks or questions that will address the potential problems we have covered in our goals. I will later show you how such a task can look like on the example of my dashboard. Plan of the meeting step by step, and something we can sometimes forget before conducting the test, which is to give the participant necessary accesses. Because this is a fundamental point, during the usability testing, we do not show the report, but the user himself interacts with the report. And that's it for creating a plan, but it's just worth to keep in mind that it's worth to make a plan, because if you Google usability testing plan, you will find plenty of sample templates that you can use, or you can adjust them to your needs. So here comes the moment when we conduct the actual test. And of course, full-time UX researchers have years of experience and know plenty of techniques. We as an analyst or developers probably won't achieve mastery in pulling feedback from users. However, I would like to give you a few tips or techniques that I found the most important or the most interesting, and which may help you to make the conversation more effective and help you to reach your goals. So first, we should ensure the user that he's not judged and there are no wrong answers. And our goal is to test the dashboard, not the users, because many people might feel hesitant to voice their true opinion or struggles, and we want them to feel safe and be honest. Next, it's very helpful to encourage users to think out loud. We care to know especially what they are looking at, what they're trying to accomplish, what they expect to happen, and how they understand of what they see. It's worth to mention this at the very beginning of the conversation, as well as to ask those questions during the conversation if the tester doesn't talk about them loud. So to remind him during the conversation. Ask open-ended questions, and this seems pretty obvious, we all know this, but I would like to stop on this point for a moment, because it's really very helpful and easy to forget during a conversation. So general rule is, how do you like it is better than do you like it. And here is an example of how to use it on real scenario. So if I were to test the navigation, instead of did you find the navigation easy, I would rather ask, can you describe your experience with navigating through the dashboard? Were there any points when you felt it was particularly intuitive or challenging? Or when our goal is more general, instead of asking, did the dashboard meet your needs? we can ask, in what ways did the dashboard align with your needs and expectation? Were there areas where you felt it fell short? And as you can see, the feedback we received will be much more detailed and valuable. So it's really worth to always keep that in mind, and also create test plans so you will not forget about this in the middle of the interview. Okay, so let's move to the next tip, which is do not lead the user. So it means do not tell the user what or where to click, and resist helping the user if he or she gets lost. I know it might be difficult, but this is our goal, to find the areas which are pain points. And if we show the user the right way, we won't know if he would find it himself. But sometimes when a user gets confused, he will ask us a question himself. For example, what should I do? And then we should use the technique of pushing back user questions. So if user, for example, asks us, what should I click? We should answer, and what do you think that you should click? Or if he asks, where can I find the filter? We would ask, and where would you normally look? And this way, first, we will see if the user will be able to find the solution on his own, but also maybe he will give us the answer how to solve the problem found. For example, where to put the missing filters. And the last point, which is awkward silence, or actually intentional silence. Generally, silence is intended to allow the user to process their thoughts, or to encourage them to elaborate further on previous thoughts. And the effect of using silence during a conversation is supposed to be richer insights, reduced bias by allowing users to express themselves fully without immediate guidance. And I'm discussing this briefly as a curiosity, because honestly, I struggle with applying it myself, because the silence moment stresses me out as well. But if you are interested in this topic, there are a lot of articles. I especially recommend the one on NN Group. It's very inspiring, contains examples of how to use intentional silence and how not to use the intentional silence, along with sample recordings. And plus, if you have the opportunity, make a note of the insight during the meetings. This will make it easier to analyze later. In typical usability testing, and there should be usually two people, where one interviews the user and the other one makes the notes. But we are not so lucky. So whenever you are in position to listen or take notes, choose to listen always, but keep those notes in mind. So the last step is to analyze and improve your dashboard. So it's good to start with making notes right after the meeting as soon as possible, so you don't forget any insight. It's much easier if you managed to make some notes and write some key insights during the testing. Then we can identify the issues or pain points the user encountered. Then we analyze, and if there is many issues to resolve, prioritize them. Later, we come up with a solution to the identified pain points, which is made easier if you have led the conversation well. For example, using the pushback techniques I just mentioned. And finally, we can apply improvements. And now, using one example of my dashboard, I would like to tell you briefly how to get down to conducting usability tests, which is mainly how to write out plan, set up the goals, and write out tasks or questions for users. So when we have a dashboard, first we should establish the goals of the study and therefore the potential pain points. So when I look at this report, if I were to test it, I would identify the following potential problems. Navigation tab. So I would like to test the relevance and intuitiveness of the navigation tabs. So is it clearly visible? Does the user understand that this is the navigation and not the title or subtitle? And does he understand which page is currently displayed? Are the names for the tabs appropriate? And so does the content of the report match the name of the tab? Next, I would also test this chart that shows performance of a target in such a way that 100% of a target is marked as 0% on y-axis, because I would not be convinced if the user who is not experienced will interpret this correctly. I would be afraid that if he say 50%, he will think that it's 50% of the target has been made, and not that the profit is 50% above the target. And lastly, in this dashboard, I broke the UI rule that says that generally in most countries, we read dashboards from left to the right. I've placed these vertical lines to visually divide the section to profit, sales, and ROI. But I would like to see if this division makes the dashboard intuitiveness and understandable, and do they see this the way I want it to? So when it comes to the navigation, I would also mostly observe if they can easily locate the navigation bar, and are they aware which tab are they on right now? And we could also ask, is the name of the tab relevant to the content? So the observation and the conversation part. In the case of a chart, I would ask a few verifying questions like, how do you understand this chart? What happened last month? Would you take any specific action based on the information presented? And when it comes to checking the intuitiveness and understandability of the report, I could ask, for example, could you walk me through what you see when you look at this report step by step? So this thinking out loud would be very helpful, because I would see if they look from the left to the right or from the top to the bottom in the section that I made. Please share the story it tells, your findings and conclusions, and a few verifying questions like, what's the revenue trend? Sales, what is the sales for given region? Or what is the target completion last month? And these questions will not only allow us to check whether the report is understandable, but also whether the user is able to find the information quickly and easily. So those learnability and efficiency components that I mentioned on the beginning. And here's another example of my dashboard, which is a bit complicated because it includes a prediction of the number of breaches and allows the user to set parameters for those breaches, depending on whether he expects them to increase or decrease. And this is definitely an example of a report that would be worth testing because it contains elements that are not very common. And this testing could be pretty detailed. But here I will just give you a few examples because we don't have so much time. So it would be definitely worth to check the filters that allow user to set a predicted number of breaches started and predicted number of breaches ended, even though I added the description at the top. And I could also test, for example, this bar chart that shows both confirmed number of breaches and forecast to see if the distinction is clear and understandable for the user. So here are some example questions we could ask to verify the understanding and intuitiveness of the parameters. So we could ask, for example, what does the annual change in the average number of breaches mean to you? So remember about open questions. What do you expect to happen on the chart if you set the predicted number of breaches ended to a very low value? How would you set up the filters if you expected the number of confirmed started breaches to be highly underestimated and the number of ended breaches to be quite accurate? Or, in your opinion, is the term annual change in the average number of breaches started clear? How would you possibly rephrase it? So it gives us quite wide picture of understanding of this element of the dashboard. And when it comes to understanding the chart, I think you already quite know how to ask about this. For example, how many new breaches were found in 2016? What number of breaches started in 2017 has not yet been made public, assuming that the number of breaches is increasing by 5% per year. And here also is an example of how to test several elements and understanding the interactions between them, combining them into one question, because we're testing the understanding of the chart and the filter pane at the same time. And for example, is it easy to distinguish between confirmed and predicted values? So that's, I think that this is the most important part in creating usability testing, to set proper goals and write good tasks or questions to ask. So finally, we're not always able to do usability testing. And in fact, I think that in the work of an analyst or Power BI developer, Tableau developer, basically never. Firstly, due to time and deadlines, and partly maybe due to stakeholders' unwillingness or unawareness. So how can we gather this feedback when we cannot conduct full usability tests? So I would like to take you through all the steps I previously mentioned and show you how we can shorten them or sneak them into the analysis work. So first, set small goals. You don't necessarily need to test all dashboard functionality and experience. You can test specific function that potentially can be problematic. For example, a newly implemented chart, like in previous example of my dashboard. You can test a smaller number of users. I said that 5 would be ideal, but even one person, especially when we don't have a wide audience, will be very, very helpful. And if you cannot test your dashboard with actual users, look for other participants, because first, we can't always interview the users, and sometimes we don't even know them. So here I would like to show you how to select the best possible testers. If you cannot test the actual users, maybe you know someone who have similar profile when it's come to experience or when it comes to area of the work. If it's also not possible, test your dashboard with team members who are not Power BI developers or analysts. And the last option is testing dashboard with other dashboard developers. It may not be the best option, but it's still valuable, because if another analyst, for example, doesn't understand our chart, we can be pretty sure that the real user won't understand it either. So it's not the best option, but it's still valuable. So we don't also necessarily have to fill out the full plan if we don't have that capacity. But just write down brief notes before meeting with user or testers. Just a few sentences. What is the potential problem? And a few questions or tasks that will allow you to verify if the problem actually exists. So it can be, for example, potential issue, Sankey chart understanding, and verifying questions. How do you understand this chart? What region had highest sales in third quarter? How did the sales structure change over the quarters? But it's worth to write down these few sentences so we don't forget about them during the conversation. And when you cannot conduct a test, try to smuggle them into other meetings with stakeholders, such as those in which you present preliminary version of the report, or for example, set additional requirements. And during these meetings, avoid demonstrating your own use of the report. Instead, give the user access to the report and see how they attempt to use it. And or ask prepared verification questions during the conversation or while he is interacting with the report. And the last final step, analyze and improve your report. And unfortunately, I won't recommend any shortcut here, because even if we have limited resources, we must prioritize user feedback and insights. After all, everything we've done before, we've done to maximize the dashboard user experience, to improve the usability, and make our reports user-friendly, and that doesn't change. So I hope that you will be able to use the techniques I have mentioned today, even if not all of them, at least maybe some of them. I feel that many of the things, seem quite obvious, but somehow we forget about them during our work, or maybe we don't find them important. But I think that this is important, and I hope that I convinced you that it is. And one last thought that I wanted to leave you with, and maybe encourage you to test. With a focus on usability testing, we not only empower our users, but also ourselves. Because with every test conducted, or at least with every well-directed conversation, we learn something new, and our perception collide with reality. So even if you are egoists and don't care about user satisfaction, do it for yourself, because everybody will benefit from it. So thanks for coming, and thanks for your attention. If you have any questions or insights, please feel free to ask, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always free to chat with everybody.
Thank you very much, Aleksandra. So first of all, I would like to start saying that you have to be a PowerPoint specialist, because you have already used all the features of PowerPoint, including more so forth. That's so great. So I appreciate
storytelling is my second passion, so it's nice to hear that.
That's perfect, really. I appreciate it. And Hillary Carter says that I love the alternative approach. Those could be very useful and very useful as sales tests. Actually, I have covered 3 questions, so I would like to start with these questions. So
I can't hear you right now.
Sorry, you can either read from chat or I can read it for you. So first question,
okay.
Yeah. I think you will find all these 3 questions, and
okay. So
yeah.
In scenarios where full usability testing is impossible, what alternative approaches or strategies can be employed to gather user feedback effectively? So I think that I covered it quite good. So we don't have to conduct full usability testing. We can sneak testing into regular meetings with stakeholders. I have to say that sometimes I conduct some small usability testing, and the users, I think they don't even know that they are tested, because I just say, for example, hey, I have prepared first version of a report. Here is the link. Could you please share your screen and tell me what do you think about this? And then we can see how he interacts with this report, although we don't conduct full usability testing.
Aleksandra, there is one more question before this one. It says that, can you elaborate on the potential challenges or limitations that might arise during the process of conducting usability testing for dashboards? So
yes, there is, I think that the biggest issue is to convince people to take part in usability testing. I think that to be able to conduct full usability tests, we would have to plan this before the project, so people have time, so they know that this is their this is what they should do. They should take part in usability testing, and they often don't know what it is, and they don't want to waste time because I said that I approve the report, so it's good. And after a few months, there are issues that were not discovered before.
Last question: Are there specific metrics or criteria that can help quantify the success of dashboard usability testing, and how are these typically measured?
I think there are techniques to measure the usability, but I don't think that this is possible to do in the context of dashboard developments, because this is quantitative studies, and we would need to have, I don't know, 100 people that will fill out the form. And I think that this is usually impossible to do so. So honestly, when we make the usability testing in a way that we talk with 3 or 5 people, it's difficult to measure that.
And last but not least, Lori says that thank you. And will the presentation be shared with us? Actually, presentation is not shared, but if Aleksandra agrees, with pleasure, no issue. So you at least, okay, it's up to you.
Sure, I can share this, but I don't know how here.
Okay, no. Either you can share here or you can send me and I will.
Okay, so I will send Ilgar.
Yes.
I will send Ilgar after the meeting.
And Hikmet is asking, which programming tools are you using in your work? It's Power BI,
yeah, Power BI, of course. So now I am a typical front-end Power BI developer. So I don't work with, let's say, back-end tools too much. I have, as a Power BI developer, I work with Power BI, sometimes SQL. There are Power Automate, and 2 programming tools, and some general Azure services.
And also, if I'm not mistaken, you are using Excel?
I was using Excel. I was using Excel and R in my previous work, but I don't use it now as a Power BI developer. It was useful when I was a data analyst.
Okay. So also Arthur Klein, thanks you, even in Polish language, I can read. Bardzo dziękuję za wspomniany wykład. Something like this.
Very good.
I'm not sure whether, okay. Luri is asking that, do you utilize Q&A? What, if any, user feedback did you receive?
I don't utilize Q&A because I think that people won't give their feedback without asking. We need to ask them. So it's better to, for example, prepare the form with our question and send them via email or Teams and ask them to fill it, because they will not use the Q&A feature.
Okay. So, Aleksandra, I will ask my last question and we'll end this meetup. Actually, you demonstrate very good, Power BI dashboards, okay? And it's always good to place grids in your dashboard. It helps people, to read the information, charts, right? So it said that there must not be more than 7 or 10, if I'm not mistaken, even 5 charts on a canvas, on one report.
Yeah.
So how do you approach to this saying? Is that right, or what's your opinion about it?
I agree. However, in the real life, we often have requirements that we have to, fulfill. And sometimes we try to break this visualization into more pages, but sometimes when we have to recreate the report to be exactly the same, for example, when we are moving from the different tool, when there is a migration, for example, from, I don't know, QuickView to Power BI, sometimes we have to recreate exactly the same report. And then, unfortunately, there's nothing we can do without this, because this is the requirements. So, of course, we try to, because it gives better performance, it gives better readability, better design, because it just looks better when there is less visualization. But sometimes it's not our decision, unfortunately.
Okay, I would like once again thank you for your wonderful,
Thanks.
Very informative session, and I will look forward to receiving your PowerPoint presentation to share with others.